Botanikis asks on the Excel subreddit, Excel chart with several x-axes. He needs to store his airflow data with a single line chart where the date is an x-axis with extra time axes. My data is as shown below, but all I can get with Excel are 3 separate lines for each of the data columns. Thanks for help. So what we can see is that Botanikis has one row for each date, and then he has multiple columns to indicate certain values at specific time points at that day. And so of course what he would like to achieve is one continuous graph showing the values as they evolve over time. Now the problem is that his data is not structured correctly. His current format of data is what we call a pivoted data structure. And so what you will have to do is to unpivot this. Now there's an easy way to do this in Power Query, but there's also a possibility to do it with Excel formulas, and so that's what I will show. So what we need to do is we want basically one column with the date and the time combined, and then one column with all of their respective values. So I will call this date, and the next column I will call value. Now the easiest thing to achieve first is these values. We just want one single column with all of the values. And so for this we can use a new function called the toCol function. How it works is we provide an array to the toCol function, and then it will convert this in simply one column. Now the default behavior is that it scans the initial array by row, but you could also have it scanned by column. But so the default behavior should suffice, so I can simply press enter, and there we have the result. Now getting the date time value here in this first column will be a lot more trickier. So we will need to combine both the date and the time, and we'll need multiple functions for that. I suggest we start off with the date value first. Now in order to achieve this, we will have to use the sequence function. And so this is a function that simply returns a number of rows or columns with numbers. So let's see, if I do a sequence of 3, you can see we got a column with 1, 2, 3. I could also get a row with 1, 2, 3. So then we leave the first argument blank and then have as a second argument as columns 3. And then we get 1, 2, 3 just like that. Now we can use this in an if function. Because the sequence returns an array, we can now make the if function also return an array. So let's use an if function, and as a logical test, all we will be using is the sequence results. Now, what a logical test does, it checks if a condition is either true or false. So if you provide a single number to a condition, that will always equal true. So what this will do is return 3 times true. Now what we then do is, if it's true, we will be returning the date values. So what this does, it is returns this same array with the date values, so from A2 to A3, 3 times, as you can see. What we can now do is we can simply put this into a toCol function. So if we put this in a toCol function, the result of this, you can see that we now get 3 times the 1st of December and 3 times the 2nd of December, exactly what we're looking for here. So what this depends upon is, of course, the 3 here in the sequence. So if we change this, you can see we will get more or less. Now let's put this all together here in just one function. So the outer function is the toCol function, where we'll be using an if function, and inside the if function a sequence function, where we want to provide 3 columns. Now, if we get a number, so then it's true. And what do we want to return? Well, it's these dates over here. So if I now press enter and add the necessary parentheses, you can see we get the dates that correspond with their respective values. So for example, the 1st of December 2023 resulted in 170. Okay, so that's very good. So now all that's left to do is we have to add the hour next to it. So for this, we will have to concatenate some strings. So first of all, let's add a space. So we do this with an ampersand, quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and now we have added a space. Of course, that's not visible. And now we have to add the function to extract the hour. Now this function is very similar. We will also use a toCol function with an if statement and a sequence function. Now we just are going to go the other way around. Earlier, we had a tree for the sequence because we needed each day 3 times. This time, we need each hour 2 times because there are only 2 dates. So as a sequence, I simply put in 2. I also put it as a first argument with the rows because our hours are in columns. So they are in reverse order as our dates. And so if that's true, so then we will be returning the hour from here, which we will of course then convert to columns. Now let's press enter, and as you can see, we now have the date with the date and the hour and the value next to it. Let me remove this here and put this into a graph. So I select all of this data with Ctrl A. I go to Insert tab and I select a line chart, a simple 2D line chart. And you can see the default behavior is exactly what we're looking for. So we go from 9 a.m. to 15 a.m. to 20 p.m., etc. Just like that. Now, one downside is that in order for this to work, your graph axis will need to be a text axis and not a date axis. So if you have lots of data, that could be a little bit annoying, but it should work.